No. No. There we go. I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, and joining me tonight for this Vampires of Collinsport podcast, resident of Collinwood. Yeah, I'll get it right somehow. The podcast that Van Helsing will be reemployed with. So, Penny Dreadful, Danielle, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Cara Tillies, Christine Pierce. How are you, ladies?
Great.
Doing good.
So, I'll start with Danielle first. Who is your favorite vampire?
Who is my favorite vampire? Like,
Yeah.
period of all vampires?
Yeah.
Does that even need to be asked?
Of course.
This is Barnabas. Of course, it's Barnabas. As played by Jonathan Frid. I love Bela Lugosi. I love Christopher Lee. They are like, the tops. But I love Barnabas.
Yeah.
My heart breaks for Barnabas.
So does my wife's, actually. She's like, Jonathan Frid was a handsome looking man. I'm like, what now? Like, God. Go ahead, Christine.
Oh, well, Barnabas is the obvious answer, if we're going off the show, besides Barnabas, because you can pick him, but everybody picks him, and he's everybody's favorite. But I am gonna go out on a limb. Roxanne Drew was my favorite vampire.
Nice.
And the reason she's my favorite is because there's so much paradox surrounding why she's a vampire. And for me, I think she has the most interesting story, besides Barnabas, of course. Barnabas got cursed, and I don't know. I love the story and the paradox surrounding her circumstances. So,
What about you, Kara?
I would say the obvious answer. You can't not say Barnabas, obviously, but I think I would say Lestat. I've always been a lover of Lestat, so if I was thinking any other vampire, I would choose him.
On the show there were a good bit of vampires. We know Barnabas is our main vampire from Dark Shadows history, of course. He's the end all to be all. But you have so many too. You have Angelique becomes a vampire. Tom Jennings becomes a vampire because of being bit by Angelique. Roxanne, as you said. Let's see, the other girl. Who Marie Wallace played. I know Penny just interviewed.
Megan Todd.
Yeah, Megan Todd. God, I'm horrible, but there's a great variety of them. And I will say that with all the vampires, I do agree with Christine that Roxanne Drew, I wish they would not have revealed her as the vampire, kept the mystery, because I think that was one of the greatest things too. With Barnabas, I always talk about this too, and I want to get you girls' thoughts on this too, audience, that for me, as a fan, I knew what a vampire was by the time I watched Dark Shadows. So when I seen the hand come out of the coffin, and I see the knock on the door, and I see this guy, I'm like, that guy's the vampire. So there was no mystery to me who the vampire was with Barnabas. But I think what Fred goes on to do with the role is just phenomenal all time. But with Roxanne, there was this mystery. You weren't like, wait, there's a... At first, I'm thinking, wait, would Barnabas wear a cloak? No, why? It was good. It's a unique twist. So, what did you think? I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Who goes first? No.
I'm sorry. I'm horrible at this. Good, Cara. I'm sorry.
My apologies. Can you repeat the question?
I know I went on a tangent there. Who's maybe an underrated vampire for you?
Oh, man.
On the show?
Underrated. That's a good question, actually. Pass. No, I'll think about it. Go ahead, guys. Go ahead, Kristen.
One that was underrated besides Roxanne, and I totally agree with you. Dirk Wilkins. He was an underrated vampire, and Roger Davis. He just seems like he had such a good time playing that guy. He's been kind of the same character until we get to Dirk, and then all of a sudden he gets to play the vampire. And the one line that he says as the vampire to Judith Collins after he bites her, he's like, "I've been taking orders from you all these years, and now you get to take orders from me." And it was a nice switch, and I don't think I don't think Dirk got enough credit as a vampire. So Dirk Wilkins.
Good call. Yeah, I agree. I think every vampire on Dark Shadows has their own distinct flavor, their own distinct personality. Like Barnabas was this tormented soul who was struggling against this curse, but could be really bad. He could be really psychopathic. I mean, Barnabas's body count in Dark Shadows, I think, surpasses everyone else's. But you also feel for Barnabas because he's struggling against this. But he's the star of the show. But then you have these characters like Dirk Wilkins, who's absolutely bananas. I mean, he goes mad after Laura dies, and then when he becomes a vampire, he's even more insane. Like it's terrifying. He's a scary vampire, and I think Tom is also, pretty terrifying and underrated too. Tom Jennings, he's predatory, reminds me of a Hammer horror vampire. He's much more animalistic almost. But Roxanne, you mentioned Roxanne. I think she's definitely, because you see people post pictures of the different Dark Shadows vampires, and it's usually like, Barnabas or Tom Jennings or somebody like that. But Roxanne, I don't think gets enough cred, and I think Jules said mysterious, and that's like the word that comes to mind whenever I think of Roxanne. She's surrounded in mystery, and there's the whole paradox about how did she become a vampire. There's a theory that Gerard made her a vampire / Judah Zachary in the first run of events, or was it somehow Barnabas that did it? But it's a fascinating character. So yeah, definitely. I think I just mentioned like tons of vampires. Roxanne, I'm gonna say Roxanne.
Right. I will go back to Megan Todd. I liked her as a vampire, and I feel like at that time we hadn't really gotten to see a woman in action yet being a vampire, and that was cool to watch, and we didn't get enough of it. I was like, I could have had a little bit more of it, but I enjoyed the way she portrayed the vampire in Megan Todd.
Yeah, see, like Angelique, when Angelique was a vampire, it almost felt like she was a different kind of vampire, like because she could like cast reflections and mirror and stuff. Like they'd set up shots, and I feel like she was like kind of like a witch vampire hybrid, because she still seemed to have witch ability, like she could communicate with Diabolos and stuff. Like so, I don't think she's as vampire almost in the same. I don't know. It's just like a thought that occurred to me with her.
I sort of wonder if Angelique was being allowed to have that sort of ability too, like you were sort of mentioning with Diabolus, because that's my thing. The character I'm going to get into is Nicholas Blair next, and on my channel. And I'll say this, that with Angelique, Nicholas, and the whole Diabolus thing is, we only see Diabolus so much, and then they don't show him no more. But when they do show him, it's like Angelique's communicating with him, Nicholas communicates with him, and then it's like, they go away from it. But you keep it in mind that, okay, the devil's around, which is cool. But I agree with you. Like, she's a really weird vampire. Like, she's summoning people to her. That really, she's just looking for an opportunity to stick the knife in Nicholas and twist it, which is cool.
She is too.
Yeah.
What did you all think of that? Like, she's just waiting for to betray Nicholas. What did you think of that, Christine?
Nicholas, she got Nicholas in trouble for doing the same thing that she did. You know, she like we don't know what her like her assignment was when she got to Earth or whatever from Diablos, but you know, she blew it because of Barnabas. You know, she couldn't get any job done because she was hung up on Barnabas. But you know, when she went to tattle on Nicholas Blair, you know, he had fallen in love with Maggie. He had fallen in love with a human too, and that's where she got him. She's like, he did this, you know, and I, it was just like sitting and waiting for her to get him, you know, just something to, you know, anything that she could tattle on him for. But it ended up being that, which is, I guess, kind of like poetic justice, because that's what he got her onto because of Barnabas. So it's kind of funny.
Good, Carl.
It's always every time they're on screen together, like it has that feeling that they've always just been like back and forth like that with each other, always like brother and sister, you know, almost like competing always to be Diablos' number one, you know, and the dynamic between the two, they were really good at.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. The way they act that out, it was.
Agreed.
But I like that brother sister bicker that seems to have been there forever between them, and it's fun to watch.
And keeps happening too, you know.
Yeah.
What did you think, Daniel?
Oh, I mean, I totally echo what Kristen and Kara said. Exactly. I mean, it's just so much fun to watch Angelique sort of, you know, try to stick it to Nicholas after all, I think it's true. Like they're sort of competing with each other, and Nicholas somehow, you know, he gets assigned this role where he's kind of in charge of the coven or something, you know, by Diabolos first. And so he's kind of lording it over her, and he treats her terribly, especially with Cassandra. He's always like chiding her, and then he punishes her by turning her into a vampire. And then he turns around and does the exact same thing and falls in love with a human. And so it's really satisfying and fun to watch Angelique try to like undermine him and get him in trouble. It's great. Really fun.
It is.
Do you?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to ask. Like I always ask this on my show too. I've heard people in both argue in favor of Nicholas being either a warlock or a demon, and ultimately I came to the conclusion, you know, he's a powerful warlock. But I've also heard people argue that he's a demon, and I've gotten like reams, long messages from fans, you know, explaining why they think one way or the other. What do you guys have feelings on that either way?
Ladies first.
I definitely that is something that I can't say that I've like thought of a lot, but it's definitely something to think about. Like, was he, you know, mortal, like kind of like Angelique was, but he was an agent of Satan, or did he actually, you know, was Hades his home? You know, was he a demon? And I don't know. I like to think that I think it was one of those, you know, I sold my soul to the devil thing. So I think he was mortal, but you know, I think there was probably something where he sold his soul to the devil, and now he, you know, he's the regional warlock of whatever Collinsport was, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of how I think of it too. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that, Kristen. We were talking about that earlier a couple days, but I agree. Like I agree with
He's a warlock, but I think too, because they had to pull back on the Diablo stuff because of some religious group.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a religious person too, but it's like, it's fiction. It's made up. Like, what are you complaining about? Like, and I do think that's sort of what, it doesn't hurt the actor because Alan is so good. Like, he really, like, he's amazing. But that, I always took away that he was sort of the devil's right hand, because when it's not Satan that's directly coming for you, it's usually his henchman or one of them who's close. So I always took it that he was close to the devil, but they strayed. They don't. Well, I wouldn't say they stray from it, but they sort of pull back on it because they can't show Diablos. I think if they just give the suggestion after going straight to hell and coming back, which is cool, if they just give the suggestion that the devil's around and Nicholas is enforcing his law, which they do a bit actually, in my view. I do think some way, like, because he's wanting, says that him and Diablos' plan is to create life. And that's why they get obsessed with Adam. I assume, like, because I think this is pre-Rosemary's Baby. So I think initially the goal is to impregnate Maggie Evans and have the daughter or the daughter of Satan, whatever. I'd like to think that was the idea, but they don't do it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That scene where the devil is speaking through Maggie's voice or speaking through Maggie's, body is just, it's insane. And I mean, I can definitely see that happening too with Maggie. So.
No, sure.
Who, out of all, we had Tom Jennings be a vampire. He gets bit by Angelique. So I love how they used the green with Dawn Briscoe. What did you guys think of Tom Jennings? Or sorry, Tom Jennings.
I loved Tom, and like it was mentioned earlier, he was very underrated. And we didn't get enough of him. I'm glad the actor came back. I'm glad Don Briscoe came back for his twin brother's role, but I thought that was the end of it. I was like, oh no. But when Chris comes in, but I liked Tom a lot, just in the short time we got him for. Like, I liked him a lot, and he was scary as crap as a vampire.
He was.
Danielle, what did you think?
Like I mentioned earlier, I thought he was wonderful. It's scary, very much cut from that Hammer horror cloth, very predatory. There was a kind of a feral sexuality to Tom Jennings even, and the whole saying Julia, and he's summoning Julia, and it's like, whoa. Yeah, and it's scary, but then you get that really interesting irony of Barnabas trying to save Julia from a vampire, and Barnabas is the one who has to destroy Tom twice. He destroys Tom twice because Nicholas drives a stake through his heart, but then later, as we know, Nicholas pulls the stake out. And then, speaking of Hammer horror, we get that great, Peter Cushing as Van Helsing scene making the cross with the candles, and until the sun comes up, and it was such a pathetic scene. Expecting, please, Billy. Getting that echo. Maybe I'll put the computer a little further away. But yeah, I thought he was great.
I really like the fact that you have great actors playing dual roles at the same time too, because they didn't just bring, Dawn on as Tom; they brought him on as Chris at the same time. And I like how they get it. It was so cool and creepy at the same time to see one actor play two different roles. Yeah. And like, it's like, wait. But I love him as both. They're both really good. And I love how creepy, like when his teeth came out, like it's a little more creepier than Barnabas' teeth.
Very pathetic.
It's like scary, like, dude, like, go away.
Yeah.
Right.
What did you think of Megan Todd getting turned into a vampire?
Initially, it made me sad. I liked the Todds like a lot. They were so charming and quaint and just cute. And I liked Megan a lot, and it made me sad. But like I said, I did like to see Marie Wallace portray that because she did it very well. So
she did. And the vampire, like Barnabas, I felt like she was one of the ones who played the human and the vampire very differently once she did become a vampire. And I was sad too, but at the same time, her husband was dead, and this was kind of like she didn't want to go back to her life. She told Barnabas and Julia that she's like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to be treated because why would I want to go back there? It's tragic, and I like the way I am now. So I think that Marie Wallace did fantastic. Playing Megan Todd when she first came on, she's human girl, but then when she changed and when she became a vampire, she was someone completely different. She was Megan Todd, but she was Megan Todd the vampire, and I love that about her. So.
Mhm.
Agreed. I agree on all counts. I mean, it was such a tragedy to see these people who come to Collinsport and open their little shop, and they just end up, their lives are destroyed by the Leviathans, and then Megan is turned into a vampire, and it's sad, but it's amazing performance. Marie Wallace was so imperious and, scary too as a vampire in her way, as she could be very she puts Roger under her thrall and he's guarding her, so she's like attacking a member of the Collins family and making him her slave, and then we get this whole vampire hunt happening with Willie and Julia, and they're trying to find Megan's coffin. So I mean, and she was just like Kristen said, turning down the possibility of the cure or the treatments. She outright, because her what does she have to go back to? She'd rather have this, what she has here now. So it's sad, and she was very good in that role.
Agreed.
What if instead of Barnabas finding the parallel time room, what if it would have been Megan? What do you think would have happened? Do you think she would have did what Barnabas did and tried to save like what was going on, or do you think she would have moved on?
I kind of think she would have moved on, because I don't know. I just don't think when Barnabas asked her, have you seen anything in this room? Have you heard anything? She was more concerned with getting caught than she was with what was going on in that room. Yep. So I don't think Megan would have cared so much, because I think, as a baby vampire, she was more concerned with, exploring this new life of hers instead of trying to fix something in a parallel time. But that's what I think. But
yeah. I was kind of thinking the same thing. It's like she like you were saying, she didn't really care. Like she didn't really know what was going on anyway. So whether she got caught in the room in the time warp or not, like I think she just would have moved on, just figured out where she was and what was, like, simple as that. Honestly, simple as that, I think. But it would have been interesting because Barnabas was not there. The vampire was not there in parallel time, like he was. Willie wrote that book.
Yeah, I think it would have changed the whole dynamic, honestly, if she had been the one to go to parallel time instead of Barnabas. I think the whole dynamic would have changed. But
yes,
yeah, agreed. I think she wouldn't care. She's seen so much in Collinsport as it is. This poor woman comes to Collinsport with her husband, and she finds out, gets brainwashed by this cult of ancient evil beings and turned into a vampire. She's probably like, I'm all set with all the weird stuff.
Totally.
I'm just gonna do my thing. So yeah, I think so. There's that other vampire in that Leviathan storyline that was played by Marsha Mason too. Remember the Audrey?
Yes.
And I always wondered, is that like the Leviathans make Barnabas a vampire for that one night, but was it a dream, or because then he wakes up and she's there and she's a vampire, so I guess it really happened. Like, it's such a weird episode.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. I didn't know what to make of that. I'm like, oh, there's another vampire, but then we don't see her again, and it's like, I kind of wish we gotten just a little more story on that, but I mean, eventually we forgot because there was so much else going on. But yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I think that though too, because the Leviathan had so many, but I always view the Leviathan a bit like Moon Knight from Marvel. Like, they have so much going on that with power and weakness that you're not sure what to make of them at times. So when you see the vampire and then it's a dream and then it's real, it's like, are we having Freddy Krueger here? Is there Nightmare on Elm Street a bit? It's weird because, again, it just, it made me think, well, wait, can the Leviathans control dreams at first? Or control have somebody needs to explain to everybody what exactly are the Leviathan powers? Because I have
Yeah.
no clue what all they entail.
Mhm.
That would be not like audios. Big finish. Write a book, guys.
Right.
Great, buddy. I know you're going to listen to this podcast, buddy. Pal, you write great, buddy. Write the book. That's a
Right.
shout. But no, I think that would be a great idea to just what exactly are the Leviathan's power range and what can they do? We know what because we've seen what Angelique can do. We've seen what Count Patoka can do. Like we've seen all these creatures have these immense powers and what they do. Other than we haven't been fully explained what exactly are the Leviathan's powers. What do they all entail? It would just be nice to get that somewhere.
Agreed.
But yeah, it's weird for sure. What did you Dirk Wilkins? I know we talked a bit about him, but Roger Davis, he really could because you do see him as Charles Delaware Tate too, so he could sort of play a heel. But before that, he plays this vampire, Dirk Wilkins. He gets bit by Barnabas. Barnabas gets bite happy, and he kills him and makes him a vampire. But he is one mean son of a bitch. But
Yeah.
Daniel, you go first.
Gosh, yeah. Well, he's definitely, unhinged. He's the most unhinged vampire we've had on Dark Shadows. By a long shot, I think. I mean, Tom was kind of on the edge too, but Dirk was like, poo-poo. And this whole like idea and obsession that Dirk Wilkins had that Barnabas had to bring Laura back, and he's threatening Rachel Drummond, and then inevitably leads to Rachel Drummond's death. Dirk Wilkins, making Judith kill Rachel Drummond. What a terrible way to.
Yeah.
That poor girl just got shot. She was an innocent victim of this crazy vampire who wants to bring Laura Collins back and thinks Barnabas can do it. Really a very intimidating presence, a really good portrayal. One of Roger Davis's better characters on the show, I would say. Dirk as the vampire, and Charles Delaware Tate was very good too, I thought. Peter Bradford, he played some good parts on the show, but he was clearly having a blast playing that character, the vampire Dirk Wilkins. But it's definitely a scary and chaotic presence on the show for sure.
Like you said, I'm glad he went there with it because it was like his first time to kind of break out of that Peter Bradford and Jeff Clark character. Like it was his first time to just have fun with it, and I'm glad he went there. It was fun to watch him just go with it, and he scared me. Like he was scary.
I think it's interesting that he, like, even after he became a vampire, he was still trying to bring Laura back. He wasn't. I don't know. I just feel like all these other vampires on the show, they're getting into their vampirism a little bit because they're all baby vampires, but not him. He's just trying to get Laura back, and it's just, I don't know. I don't get that. It just made me laugh a little bit that he was so enamored with her and so drawn to her, and I don't even know the word, that he, even in death, even as another natural creature, he wanted to bring her back. If he did, I feel like she would have found a way to destroy him, if nobody else had. But I don't. It just baffled me just a little bit. But
if you notice too, before he even gets turned into a vampire, he is concerned. He's concerned about Laura and asking about her, and you always get the sense that Dirk would kill for Laura too. So when he gets the faintest bit of power in being a vampire, he uses it. It's like this. You know how there's Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. Dirk wouldn't be listening to that one.
We're doing
Mhm.
series on the loyal henchman and loyal henchman, and he's definitely one who I would say falls into that category for sure.
Right. Like I was talking about Aristide, I think, yesterday, because he's loyal. But right, Dirk Wilkins is loyal to the extreme. I mean, he goes to every length to want the woman he loves, and I do
Mhm.
think he loves her back. It's like, dude, just wait 100 years, she'll come back. That's what I want. I'm like, I looked at my wife. I'm like, if Dirk just tied his coffin really well, which he had in a pretty good spot, if he'd have just took it somewhere and waited 100 years, he'd have been all right. He'd have found her again. But I don't think you can even really tell him that though, because I think if you'd have told him that, he'd have just been. I think he would have thought you were just humiliating him and probably killed you. He is sadistic, like to the core.
Mhm.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he more sadistic than Barnabas? You think, Dirk?
I think Barnabas is more intelligent than Barnabas can be very sinister in how he enacts his plans. I don't think Dirk plans ahead that much. I think he's just acts on impulse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How when how sorry do you feel? Sorry, who's the henchman do you feel sorry for the most with the vampires?
Mm.
I know.
Willie Loomis, honestly. That man went through so much stuff, getting shot in the back, having to dig up these body parts for Barnabas, having to stake Megan Todd. And eventually he does ask Barnabas, why are you picking on me? Why me? And Willie, I'm not picking on you. He goes, yes, you most certainly are. And God, I felt so bad for Willie. He was, trying to get married, trying to, make a life of his own. And there's Barnabas drawing him back in. I don't know if any henchman had it as bad as Willie Loomis did. I don't think so.
Agreed. Like he ate and abetted everything for Barnabas, if not took the entire fall for something. So I agree. I mean, I'm not sure anybody had it worse than Willie.
No question about it for me either. I mean, it's definitely Willie. I mean, he goes from being, and it's amazing. John Carlin was so good. Like he just goes from being, and no offense to James Hall, who did an admirable job for the short time he was on the show, but John Carlin took it from this slime ball kind of character who's on the edge and doing really awful stuff that you hate, and then he wind up loving Willie. You feel so bad for Willie. I mean, Barnabas crap out of him with the cane. He's really, at first, really bad to Willie, and then, he gets used to like Kristen said, digging up body parts and doing all this crazy stuff. But he becomes this loyal friend to Barnabas, and you have this Barnabas, Julia, and Willie, the three of them, like that are kind of a team almost, and it's definitely Will. I feel so bad for Willie, especially in the first couple of years of the show, for sure. And even later during Leviathan, he's like, I'm engaged, I'm gonna get married, and Barnabas is like, I need you to guard me during the day. But then Willie makes the choice to do it. Barnabas says, I lets him go. He says, you don't have to, and Willie, on his own, of his own volition, agrees to do it, which is a great turning point for that character. Yeah.
It goes to show you everything that Willie has been through has led him to a friendship with his master. This is more than Renfield and Dracula would ever have, really. And I think it goes to show you just how great television can be when you have two great actors and great writers who they get. Barnabas puts Willie through hell. You've all done a great job cementing that. And I think one of the best, like, there's a moment after. I always joke that the Collinsport Police Department are the finest shots ever. They got a picture of Willie Loomis in the shooting range, but after that, there's a moment where Barnabas tells Julia to go kill Willie, like make sure he dies, and it's like, oh wow, because I remember Willie sort of like somewhat defended Julie a bit, but it's like Barnabas is like go kill him, and she's going to go remove the needle, and thank God for like the sheriff, and it's like thank you, George Patterson. Thank you. And it's like wow. But then when like Ian said, when he comes back, it's like for the Leviathan, here they've been through so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like wow, it's so. I think Willie finally understood. Like, man, this guy did not ask for this.
Yeah.
But and the life I had prior to meeting this guy, it was probably going to get me killed.
Yeah.
I mean, look where it happened with Jason. Look, Paul. If Paul would have never made that deal with the Leviathans, he would have got a bullet from somebody.
Yeah.
Why should I? Why I was sort of, in a weird way, Willie's fate is sort of luck in a weird way.
Although it makes me wonder, like during summer 1970, there's a great episode where Julia and Willie find Roxanne, and then they can't stay. Willie's like, we have to destroy her. Barnabas, and Julia's, it's kind of heartbreaking. Julia's like, no, we can't. It's Roxanne. But it's interesting that Maggie once again was a victim of a vampire, and I'm surprised Willie wasn't a suspect. Like they didn't go after Willie because they thought it was him the first time around and locked him up in Wincliffe for a while. So I wonder why the police didn't immediately try to go find Willie, but maybe he had an alibi, like, maybe that was the reason. We don't really get that explanation, but I did wonder about that at the time.
He's the turned around criminal. He's engaged to he's got this future bride to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
The power of love.
I'm sorry.
No,
sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say about Will. Now I lost what I was gonna say. Never mind. You go ahead. I lost what I was gonna say.
I'll give an honorable mention though too for a henchman who I felt bad for was Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah.
Simply because he reads these horoscopes and you're thinking, okay, is this legit here? Is he just playing around? But then when you find out Roxanne is this mysterious vampire, there's this great confrontation between him and her where he's like, but I know it's a lie. It's a lie. Basically, that the Collinses aren't going to have a good future. That's what he's basically told them. So him being able to know this lets me know, hey, that power he has is real, is legit. And I've always found that intriguing because he felt bad enough. When you're confronted, I've always, when it comes to vampire master relationship, I always know this is basically like Sith underling. Basically, your life could end at any moment. I always feel, but I was just waiting for her to like, you know what, you're of no use to me, and kill him, because Roxanne to me was beautiful but deadly at any given moment, and him telling her this has sort of made me feel bad for him because he felt bad for every single one of them, for the Collins, a family he didn't know, really.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead, Kara. I'm sorry. What did
About Sebastian Shaw?
Yeah, what did you think? Sorry.
I enjoyed him. Sorry. I liked what he brought, and like you were saying about with the reading the horoscopes and stuff, we've kind of been through that a little bit, like with the tarot cards and the Countess and all that, and then we get to see, him doing that. Very interesting character for me, for sure.
Sebastian Shaw, sometimes I wonder why he didn't just tell the truth, because he knew what was coming, but he purposely told the Collins family the other way, but I during this like era of Dark Shadows, there were so many, they got all these clues that were going to help them, avoid this tragedy, and Sebastian had a hand in that. He could have helped them, avoid this tragedy, but he didn't. And I always wonder, every time I watch it, I keep hoping it's going to end differently, and it doesn't. He always gives the wrong horoscope anyway on purpose. And I don't know if it was because Roxanne told him to, or if she remembers this family from, 1840 or whatever it is, and it just that always bugged me that he didn't help, and he could have, like he was having his visions, and he saw what he saw, but he was like, oh, it's all going to be fine, it's good, and I don't know, it bugged me a little bit, but
I think Chris hit the nail on the head with the idea of Roxanne telling Sebastian not to tell them. There is an implication that Roxanne is somehow in cahoots with Gerard/Judah Zachary, the ghost haunting Collinwood. And in fact, when Sebastian finally somehow he breaks through her control over him as a vampire, he's going to destroy her. He finds the secret room, and Gerard, as I recall, is the one who stops Sebastian from destroying Roxanne. So we don't know what happened in the original run of events in 1840. We just get some clues, but clearly some stuff must have gone down in that run of events, because Roxanne seems to somehow be connected to Gerard, or possibly helping Gerard. So I think she told Sebastian not to tell the Collins family, and I think that's what he seemed very resentful of certain things. And I do feel for Sebastian, even though he seems kind of arrogant and stuff. When a lot of Chris Penna characters kind of come across that way, and he is kind of like arrogant, But then you start to feel for him, and they kind of set it up that he might be the vampire preying on Maggie, but then it turns out, oh wait, no, he's not. He's actually, they're because they're kind of leading you down that path, so you don't know who the real vampire is. Yeah, I really, I felt for him once I saw what was happening, that he was actually the servant of the vampire. But yeah, I think there was definitely something that happened there with Roxanne telling him not to tell the Collins family.
Would have been cool to see, instead of Roxanne just being related to Quentin's wife, it would have been cool to see, well, Roxanne was one of the original first Drews who settled in Collinsport, became a cult member of Judah Zachary, and he put her under the vampire curse. But he knew where he chained her up. Like, sort of, it's like where Joshua chains up Barnabas. Well, you would have had Judah chaining up her. Like, you know what? I'm going to need you one day, so I'll just leave you here. And when they do 1840, he goes and gets her. Like, now I need you.
That's a great theory. I love that.
Yeah, it would have been cool to see, right?
Right.
And it makes sense. It would make total sense. Like,
definitely.
I'm trying to think. Who is there a vampire outside of Dark Shadows? Who's your favorite, Kristen?
Outside of Dark Shadows, it's really silly because I love the movie, but I love Dracula Dead and Loving It. I loved Dracula in that movie. I really did. I mean, I know what it's supposed, it's Mel Brooks. I get it, but I love it so much. So if I had to, I had Dracula from Dracula Dead and Loving It, if I had to pick. So I love it.
Car.
I guess I'd answered it earlier, but outside of Dark Shadows, Lestat for sure has always been a very intriguing character and vampire to me. It's like I love him. Brad Pitt. No, I'm joking. But yeah.
Daniel.
I also kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's very much neck and neck with Lugosi's Dracula and Christopher Lee Dracula. I love both of them, but if I had to choose just one, I'm gonna have to go with Lugosi, because he is the definitive, the iconic Dracula, upon which, I mean, that is like one of the building blocks of horror cinema as a genre, I mean, and that's such an iconic portrayal that I gotta go with Bela Lugosi. Yeah.
If you see Mark of the Vampire,
I love Mark of the Vampire.
It's really funny, and like creepy at the same time.
Yeah.
Lionel Barrymore is beautiful in that movie, so is Bela Lugosi, but I don't. Outside of Dark Shadows, I've always enjoyed Vampire Hunter D, both movies. I can't complain. I
Yeah.
I do hope that one day, when we get the sequel series, we get Barnabas back. That would be so awesome. I know you all do too. But I was trying to think of some. Oh, you mentioned Dracula Dead and Loving It. There's a what is it? A YouTube video. Somebody took the Detroit Becoming Human video game and put the Leslie Nielsen Naked Gun in the video, and he's just going through the game. I'm just like,
No way, I've not seen that.
I will send it to all of you. It's hilarious.
Please, yeah, I have to see this. That's hilarious.
I tell people, I'm like, well, Leslie Nielsen used to be this real serious actor because he was in a bunch of stuff, but luckily he changed paths and became like one of the funniest actors ever.
Seriously.
Like the original Prom Night, Leslie Nielsen's in that movie.
Mm-hmm. He is.
Oh my God. Also, the original Poseidon Adventure too. He plays the captain, but when Barnabas gets out and he starts stalking Maggie, did you think he was going to kill Maggie Evans at all? Any of you?
I thought at one point, definitely, because after everything that had gone down at that point, and it's like, it's just out of control. Kind of like he was with Willie. He's like, just get rid of him, just kill him. Like, that's kind of how I felt with Barnabas and Maggie. Like, I thought for sure he wouldn't hesitate to do it, even if he didn't. But I thought for sure that might happen. Watching it,
I kind of thought the same thing, and only because during the time he was stalking Maggie, we didn't know Barnabas very well. We didn't know. All we knew about him really is we kind of get the feeling that he had a tragic past, but the biggest thing we know about him is he is a vampire from 1700s, and that's the vampire's MO. So we figured either kill her or turn her, because you can't have it in the middle ground. She can continue to be a victim, but eventually she fought him. She didn't want to be Josette, so it was either he was going to kill her or turn her, and because she didn't want to be Josette, I think he would have killed her. But I mean, the longer we watch and the more we got to know Barnabas, I had a hard time believing that he would kill Maggie, at least later on down the road, because we learned that Barnabas does have a heart, even though it's not beating, but he does have it. When he cares about someone, he does all he can do not to hurt them, not to destroy them. But at that point, when he first came out, I did think that he would eventually kill her, especially with as strong-willed as she was, But
and I honestly kind of think if it weren't for Julia, maybe I think it would have happened if Julia
I
had.
think so. I kind of think so too.
What do you think?
I thinking back to when I first saw that storyline when I was a kid, it seemed that Maggie was going to turn Maggie into a vampire. I thought he was going to turn before he even imprisoned her and all of that. I thought when she disappeared from the hospital room, I thought she was going to become a vampire at the time. I mean, I didn't know where the storyline was going to go, so I was definitely scared for Maggie. And then when he imprisoned her in the cell, I didn't think she was going to die at that time, because especially when Sarah started showing up, I figured Sarah was going to help her. It seemed like something was going to happen there, but I think he would have if it weren't for Sarah and Julia and those who were trying to help her. He certainly was determined to do that. Clearly he was going to eliminate her at that point. But somebody, Joe Escobar, was a Dark Shadows fan. He wrote to me and he pointed out the sort of that he thought Maggie was going to rise as a vampire, and he thought she was kind of going to be the Lucy character from Dracula, because they were kind of like parallels with the Dark Shadows cast members. Like Vicky would be the Mina Harker, and Burke as the Jonathan Harker. Woodard is Dr. Seward. Julia would have been the Van Helsing originally, until they changed plans and she's trying to cure Barnabas. But Maggie then would have probably been in the Lucy role, much like Carolyn was in House of Dark Shadows. If we look at the movie, Carolyn was a great vampire too in the House of Dark Shadows. But yeah, I thought she was gonna die when I first saw that storyline. I was really scared that she was, because I really liked Maggie,
I didn't believe he was going to kill her. I never believed it, and I'll tell you honestly why. When Jonathan Fritz Barnabas gets out of the coffin, he comes to the old house. David tells him about Josette's portrait, about, well, if you're Collins, she'd help you. And he already knows Josette. You don't know that right away, but then he starts talking to her portrait. And what he says is, he doesn't say it in anger. He sort of says it like a heartbroken person. Like he feels betrayed, but not just by her, but by his dad. And it's like, wow, he doesn't really sound like he's angry. He just sounds hurt. And so when you look at Josette's portrait, and you see Maggie, I do sort of think you do sort of see Kathleen Lee Scott in a sense right away before the dress comes on her. Then when you see her in her dress, it's like, oh my God, like you get why he chose her. But I never thought he was ever going to kill her, because he had too many opportunities to do it. He had does it matter where he kills her? No, he could just do it. But he doesn't. And I love how, too, there's a moment when they think she's dead, when Barnabas and Willie is like Jiminy Cricket on his shoulder. We killed that girl, Barnabas. We killed her. And I literally am waiting for him to just turn around and beat the crap out of him, because he's had no problem doing it up till, But no, he doesn't, because he honestly feels he did, and he feels bad for doing it. If he thinks he did it.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. I'm trying to think if we missed anybody. Sorry, I'm awful at this. I don't think we did. Is there anything anybody wants to add before we go? Danielle.
I just want to say that it was really fun. Thanks for having me on. I had a blast talking about the vampires of Dark Shadows. But yeah, I think a nod shout out to the House of Dark Shadows. Everybody turned into a vampire. So.
Yes.
If you're looking for the every vampire, House of Dark Shadows has you covered, right?
Yes.
Yes.
What's coming up on your channel, Danielle?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Sorry, what's coming up on your channel?
Oh, the next episode features some awesome podcast hosts that you might know. From Resident of Collinwood and Between the Shadows podcast. That one is coming up in a few days. I think Thursday. I'll be putting that up. We're going to be where we discussed parallel time, 1970 parallel time. So I've edited the episode. I'll be putting that up pretty soon. And then after that, I'm kind of touching base with a couple of people to do I want to do an episode on Robert Cobert's Dark Shadows theme music. So hopefully that will be coming soon.
Cool. Christine, Carol, what do you girls got coming up on your channel?
Oh, we are just getting into Dr. Lang creation part on the show. So we're going to dissect that in the next couple episodes. And looking forward to it because it's really interesting. Dr. Lang was such an interesting guy. Like how bizarre, like medicine. He's pretty into the bizarre stuff. And it's like, how bizarre though? And you get to see how bizarre, and it's crazy. I love it.
We are looking into, because we haven't had guests on our podcast yet, but that's definitely something that we would like to do. So, and definitely want to have both of you guys on, because
I'll
We're
give
sharing the love here.
a solid recommendation to Patrick McRae. He is awesome.
Yes.
Oh,
I reached out to Patrick also, so we're
He is awesome. He's one of the Yins are all nice, but he's one of the nicest people too I've ever met. Mark Gilman is another. He's on Twitter at _Bars. I've had him on for other things too, like Halloween. He's a really super Dark Shadows fan too. Shout out to him. But there's a lot of people out there.
Right.
But where can you get the Dark Between the Shadows T-shirts? Can you buy them?
We're working on.
this was her doing.
Yeah. I was like, let's just get the prototypes out there and see how it goes. So, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Keep us posted for sure.
We will.
For Tarot Collinwood, Danielle, for Between the Shadows, these ladies are so awesome. Go sub to their channels. They're super huge Dark Shadows fans like myself. They're very, very knowledgeable and very wise. Women are smarter than men, and they're proof of it. I mean, my wife's proof of it. Hell, I'm not worthy. You ladies are awesome. Thank you.
You're awesome too,
much for
Jill.
tolerating me tonight.
Thanks for having us again. I love this. I love it so much.
So much fun.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye.
You too.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.